Hello and welcome to another video, and again thank you for the support that you've shown me in the last few videos. Today I'm going to say it's different, I always say that, but this is something that I come across about 10 years ago, and the person's reached out against me via this channel and said, well, I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you, right, what happened. So years ago when I was doing Paranormal, we appeared on Absolute Radio. During that time, our website crashed, but people still sent their stories in to us. Two teenagers then sent us this story. I read it, done a little bit looking into it, and forgot about it. Dan has reached out to me via this channel, and he sent it to me, and I was reading it, and I was thinking, this sounds familiar. And it turned out it was the same one that he'd always sent me years ago. And I went through my old laptop, got out all the stuff I looked at then, and yeah, so I hope you're going to find this one. It is based on the Norfolk Broads. It's a little bit creepy, a little bit strange, and maybe a bit more paranormal type stuff as well added into it, not just ghosts. So see what you think of it. So we go back to 2002, and Dan and Andy are 16 at the time. And they're just your average teenagers getting up to a bit of mischief, but they were actually scouts, and the year before they'd been up to Norfolk Broads with their scout lot, gone around the Broads on a sailboat, done a few bits, and they enjoyed it. They persuaded their families to go on a holiday to Norfolk Broads. This was Dan's family, and Andy joined up with them and went on the trip with him. I'm not going to say they're best behaved, as you'll see, and what happened to them, I guess some will say, was well deserved. They travelled up to Norfolk on the Friday afternoon, so by Friday evening they'd actually got to Horning, where they were hiring the boat out. They went through all the checks with the people hiring the boat. By the time they sorted the boat out, they only had a few hours left to go out onto the river, and their plan was to literally just go around the bend in Horning and then moor up somewhere and spend the night, which is exactly what they did. So they all got all their stuff together, set off, and Dan and Andy, as they were used to being out on the river. Their parents, not so much, as the first time they actually hired a boat, so they were a little bit nervous about going out on a boat, something that I've done a few times. And yeah, we've done it the other year. My mate owned a boat up on the river, so we went out there the other year on there. And years ago, funny enough, in 2001, me and my sister and my wife, we hired a boat out and went around the Broads then. And we went to the places that we're going to be talking about. And we didn't experience anything like this. But when I've been researching this, I found out that the Norfolk Broads has got a lot of paranormal stories to it. So early Saturday morning, the family got up, started up the boat, and they headed off up to Wroxham. Now, Wroxham is a town. It's got loads of old history there, and most famously is the Roy's industry. So everything you got, you've got the Roy's toy shop, Roy's supermarket, and yeah, he set up a whole little town around there. And it's always been a bit of a joke, what's Roy got now? So when we go up there, it's just one of those little towns that we like to go. Nice mooring places, and it's just a nice place to stop over. They went up there, they spent most of the day in Wroxham. On the way up there, Andy and Dan have spotted a place that they recognised when they were out scouting. Now this is on the River Bureau, which is basically all of it, but there's a gap, and in between that gap you've got the Hudson Great Broad. Now apparently when they were scouting, they had gone off in there, and they got off and had gone through the woods around the area, and they enjoyed it. What they persuaded their family to do was later that evening to drop them off by Hudson Bay. Now I'm looking at the map here. So you've got Wroxham Boat Club and Pub Yacht Club on one side of Wroxham Broad. Then you've got the River Burr. Then you've got a little gap. Then you've got the Hudson Bay. They got dropped off on the banks of Hudson Bay, and they were going to spend the night on this stretch of land that comes right the way down to Gravel Dyke. Things didn't quite go to plan. Some of the stuff that they see we'll go into because it links into other stuff. Now, we're not going into a lot of the history of Norfolk Broads since this. And no, I say I did look at it before. It is a place that interests me. Been up there a lot, been into Norfolk a lot. I know quite a lot of ghost stories around this area, and I want to do the ones in Lowestoft coming up. So there's a lot of interest that I have with the Norfolk Broads. But some of the stuff they come up with, to start off with, sounds crazy. But then you can start linking it up with little bits of evidence of history. Now this is coming from two 16-year-old boys. And that's what we've got to keep in mind, that they sent this report when they were probably 18, 19, when they sent this report to me. So it was a couple of years after. Their story hasn't changed. I read the email, it sounded familiar, and I knew this was linking back to them. So Dan and Andy get dropped off around about 6 o'clock in the evening. Now, being it's August, it doesn't get dark till quite late, it's about 9 o'clock. So they've got quite a few hours to explore where they want to camp for the night. I don't know the rules on camping in Norfolk Broads. I'm pretty sure you can't do that. Correct me if I'm wrong, you may be able to, I don't know. But I'm just assuming this bit of land is probably not the best for it. It looks quite boggy. I'm just assuming this bit of land isn't the best for it. Come up to about 8 o'clock, they'd been mucking around in the woods and setting up a little camp where they wanted to stay. Now, they hadn't gone far. They'd only walked about 500 yards down towards Gravel Dyke, so literally not far at all. And they could still see across the river the Wroxham Yacht Club. So literally not far. Through the trees, there's a river, and then through the trees you can see the Wroxham Yacht Club. So not far at all from what you call civilization. We're not out in your hat bags for Norfolk Broads. But then again, if your boat breaks down or you get stuck in a thunderstorm and you're in Norfolk Broads, it does feel like you're miles away from civilization, believe me. Right, so getting back to this, around about 9 o'clock at night, it was getting dark, and they got their little lanterns out, so they were the battery type lanterns, and they set up their little stove and they're sitting around and just, they're scouts. They think they can survive and do everything. Not knocking scouts. I don't want the Scout Society coming after me and tracking me down and hunting, and they're better hunters than me, but I won't be very good. So it's been a long time since I've read my Blue Peter book by Peter Duncan, I think it was. So yeah, so actually set up quite a reasonable little camp. They had sleeping bags, which they were going to be using on the boat, but they brought them with them. So around about 10 o'clock, they were ready to sort of like settle down, cleared a bit of an area in the woods where they were going to be sleeping, and just laid down and thought they were going to have a peaceful night sleeping out in the woods. No, they were just laying there having a little chat when the first thing that sort of spooked them out happened. They could hear footsteps in the wood next to them. They're thinking it might be an animal. Andy turns his light on, shines it around, and sees two pairs of eyes looking back at him. And Dan said, don't worry, that's animal. Animal's eyes reflect it. It could be a fox, could be hedgehog, badger, anything. So, yeah, I don't know if you get badgers in Norfolk Broads. It's a bit wet in it, I don't know. Well, you might do. Someone tell me, can you get badgers in Norfolk Broads? Anyway, it settled their minds that it was nothing creepy. They turn their lights off and they're laying there. But already you can tell they're a little bit twitchy and edgy about being out there. Their bravery has started to desert them. Now they were out, as I say, they're not out in the, they're not out in the desolate area. You've only got the boat club through the other side of the river, so it's not too bad. But after laying there for another 20 minutes, both of them could start hearing a heavy breathing. And they're looking at each other, and they both sit up. And this heavy breathing is getting closer and closer. They turn their lights on, they shine it down the side of the woods, and because you've got the yacht club in the distance, they could see lights, nothing there. They turn it onto the other side, there's nothing coming through the bushes and the woods on the other side. They get a little bit nervous. The breathing is getting deeper and deeper and getting closer and closer. Dan starts shouting out, who's there? Hears nothing. Andy's getting a little bit more brave. He stands up, grabs a branch, starts walking around. And then to the right of them, they see what they describe as a monk walking through the woods and then disappearing up to where Hudson Bay is. This completely shocks both the kids and makes them pack up their stuff and head further down towards Gravel Dyke. Now, between them, they're not convinced it was a ghost. They think it was someone out there dressed as a monk and have come across some weird cult that's going on. And funny enough, we do have links with a cult of such in this area. Even so, that we have a report here that they tried to promote the cult of St Margaret Home, supposedly a girl killed in the woods at Hudson, St John on the 22nd of May 1770. So we've got something linking to the monks and cults and all that. Why do I say the monks? Because we've got the abbey just down the road, St Benet's Abbey, where there's quite a lot of paranormal tales around the area. But what happens next, you need to not suspend your disbelief, but take these two teenagers as their word, because it is really strange. Now, the best way to retell this story is from reading a part of the email. So Dan and Andy have got together to construct this email to me, and Dan puts, we moved a quarter mile back down into the forest. I call it a forest because that's what it seemed to us at the time. Looking at it, it's not massive, it's just a narrow stretch. You probably see either sides of it. We were both shaking and was worried that we were going to be attacked by somebody. We both decided that it was getting quite late and there's no way off of this. We had to spend the night here. Whatever was going to happen was going to happen. We found a large tree and we put our sleeping bags around the large tree, and we actually felt a little bit protected. After about an hour, we started to see a black shape. We couldn't make out, and sometimes it seems like your eyes are making patterns where there is nothing actually there, and you're just making patterns out of the darkness. We kept saying to each other, can you see that? Can you make that shape out? As we looked closer and closer, the shape started to turn into a blob. The blob seemed to grow. So it's quite difficult to understand what this could be, what they're looking at. But while they're sitting there and staring, this blob does sort of take shape and gets bigger and bigger. And Dan says it forms the shape of a type of human being. He said it is a dense black figure, but it has bright red eyes. What I look into this, so when I look back over a lot of paranormal reports, things that we can't explain, like the one at Fobbing, the waterworks, this tall black figure with red eyes appears there. And we've got this tall black figure with red eyes appearing here. Are we talking about a demon? Are we talking about something more than just ghosts and that sort of thing? This absolutely petrified Dan and Andy. They grabbed each other and they were shaking. Dan says, I thought this is it. I thought we were going to die. I didn't know how we was going to get out of this, and I was waiting for the figure to attack us. What actually happened was that the figure started to move towards them. The two boys were panicking more and more. They grabbed their sleeping bag and tried to run. As they tried to run, they felt they were powerless, as if something was putting their feet into muddy water. They could not move. Dan said that he felt like he was running at full pelt, and yet he'd only moved about 3 feet down the woods. Dan and Andy thought this was it, game over. Now they wasn't sure what this was about to attack them. Then they see something else appear. Moving behind the black figure was a grey shape, tall, long white hair, scruffy beard, wearing a coat made of rags or cloth, tied up with a big belt, holding a big spear. The figure points the spear at this black shape, and the black shape backs off and disappears. This man turns and looks at these two boys, The boys say Dan says that his face is almost glowing. He said he can work out he has bright blue eyes. The man says nothing, just raises his spear to the boys, backs off into the woods. Two boys are sitting there, Dan and Andy, thinking, what has just gone on? And this is not even midnight. So they've got a lot of hours spending their time in this woods, and they are creeps out as hell. And I did ask, and I'll be really blunt, I asked him, did him and Dan take any drugs? No, he said, I assure you, we took nothing. So I know back then, E's and all that were quite a thing, and it assures me they did not take anything, no acid or anything. So we're taking their word for them. These were two 16-year-old boys, and I believe 16-year-old boys were still 16-year-old boys back in 2002. Not like today's world, unfortunately. What the boys' idea was to make their way down through the woods to Gravel Dyke, and this is what they were going to do in the morning. So make their way down to Gravel Dyke, cross Gravel Dyke, get to Landing Bay, just opposite Salthouse Broad, where they eventually be picked up in the morning. But what actually happened is they started making their way down to that point during the night. And it took them quite a few hours through tripping over logs, stepping into really boggy areas, and really struggling. They got to Gravel Dyke, and it wasn't as easy to cross as they thought. Now, when they'd been at the Scouts, they had moored their little sailboat up along there, and they thought they could get across quite easily. As Dan says, something obviously changed over that time, because the trees that overhung it weren't there, and it was going to be difficult. It means they're going to get wet. They managed to throw their sleeping bags over the other side. When it became the boys' turn to jump in and just wade across or swim across the short little spans between the two islands, things got a little bit darker. Dan got in first, and he managed to, within a few seconds, get across and go up onto the bank on the other side. He turned round. Dan looked behind Andy, and he said he could see the black figure was approaching Andy, and he's shouting at Andy, get in now, it's coming for you. Andy turns round, and he does see this black shape on the side of the bank coming along towards him. He jumps into the river and gets onto the other side of the bank. As he's standing on the other side of the bank, they both turn around and look. What you'd expect, you assume, that this black figure would stop where the gap was. It didn't. This black figure just carried on moving across the gap. The two boys get as fast as they could through the woods, tripping over, falling. They thought they was being chased, and they got down to a slight open area in the woods where they did feel a bit safer. Now, literally, they are panicking. I mean, there's stuff in here that I'll keep their dignity. They panicked. Yeah, they were scared, and Dan quite openly describes his emotions, and that he truly believed that this was going to be the end, that they weren't going to survive. They thought they'd come across some weird bloke that was chasing them in the woods. Andy was starting to think more paranormal side, because he's there thinking that this figure did not look like a real figure. He was working out with his eyes, his blob, and he said it changed shapes and all this. So he's thinking more of the supernatural side. He sees this bloke that they've got no idea of, and now Andy calls him Jesus. So I don't think it was Jesus, but you got to remember that the Broads were kept by Saxons, and they were farmed by the Saxons. Is this a ghost of a Saxon person that is protecting the land, protecting these boys? We know that this was used as a cult area. There's a lot of weird stuff going on here. Eventually, the boys get further down to where they need to be. The light comes through. It's getting lighter now. They feel a lot safer. The boys eventually get down to the bank. 7 o'clock comes. The parents come down in the boat, they pick them up, they look at the boys and go, what has gone on with you? The boys are white as a sheet. They are absolutely petrified. As they go into the boat, they both burst out crying. This is only their first day of their holiday. They want to go home. They don't want to be there anymore. Over the next few days, they calm down. They relay the story to the parents, and the parents don't believe them. They think they're making it up. So after a couple of days of exploring the north part of the Broads, they turn the boat round and they move further down. They end up at St Benet's Abbey. They moored the boat up along the side, and it's probably the last thing the two boys want to do was go around and explore an abbey. The parents get out, they go and explore it, and they persuade the two boys to go out and have a look. The two boys are walking around the abbey, quite nervy, and in a dark corner, both Andy and Dan see a shape. They believe, you know what, I'm going to read it. I may not do their justice, right? I'm going to read out what he put. I'm sorry, I'm not laughing at the situation, okay? Just that you got yourselves into this trouble. Yeah? Just saying. They say, standing in the corner, Mum and Dad were out of sight. I'll tell you now, I see the shape, and it was a monk. We're both staring at him. We're both staring at him. He pulls his hood down. And it's the same guy who had the spear that stopped the thing the other night. I don't know what to say. Was he protecting us? What's your thoughts on this? We are not crazy. We'd just like some explanation of what happened to us. So I may be able to help. Doing a bit of research, I did come across something, and that is the ghost of the Roxham Broad. It's a local legend about the ghostly figure of Brother Protheus, who is said to haunt the area around Roxham Broad. He is depicted as a medieval monk who was tasked to repairing the rod screen at St Helen's Church in Rainworth. The story goes that he was the only monk to escape the massacre at St Benet's Abbey during the dissolution of the monasteries. Legend has it that he can be seen rowing across the Broad in a small boat, accompanied by his dog, returning to the abbey. Was this the ghostly monk? Was this monk protecting these two boys? What is this black figure? Is this black figure being generated by the beliefs and the occult, or the cult that was practiced there? I know when I've been on Norfolk Broads, I always found it quite peaceful. My friend took us out there late at night on his own private boat, and it is lovely, especially around sunset. Is it creepy? Yeah, over night time it is, and I get creepy when I go across the... I get the creeps. I'm always creepy. No, I get the creeps when I go across open bodies of water in one of those little boats you hire out on the Broads, and Alton Broad and all that. It feels unsafe to me. But maybe we've found an answer to this, if you want to believe the paranormal side of it all. Is this more of a demon figure that's been generated, this black figure? I say it's come up in a few of our stories when we go through it, you know, and it's not the only one. I know when we've done Eastbury Manor, people down there spoke about this black figure, black shape that turned into a figure with red eyes. You know, it seems a common thing. Are these people visualizing demons or some sort of entity? I'd find this story quite interesting. He's been bugging me to cover it, and every time I put out a new video, he sends me another message saying, when are you going to do mine? When are you going to do mine? Poor guy's been waiting since about 2006. No, it couldn't be that. So we've done Absolute Radio a lot later than that, so must have done Absolute Radio about 2012, something around there. So they were probably a lot older when they contacted us, but they also remember this story very well from back then. And in the message between me and them, we've had a bit of a laugh. He wanted some answers, so I hope digging into the issue for you, this may answer some of it. And I hope you enjoyed this little video. Not as long as some of the other ones we've done, I know, but it's a story that I've said I'll get out there, and digging into the history of it. I could go really deep into the paranormal side of the Norfolk Broads. There is rifts of ghost stories and everything now. I would like to go there and film it and do it properly, and maybe get some guests on there that have experienced stuff on there as well. Maybe we'll leave that for another day. But again, thank you for your support. Hit the bell, hit the like rating and all that stuff. And for the members, I put that new video up for you. And yeah, it's a sad one, and there's a lot more to that, but yeah. Anyway, I'll see you next video. Bye.